So welcome back students in this series of Munster Technology. So in the previous video we have discussed about Node.js HTTP module, which is Hypertext Transfer Protocol module. So in that video we have discussed how a client can send a request to the server and how the server can respond to that particular request and generate a response for the client. Now taking that forward, let's discuss how to send that request not with the help of that search bar but with the help of some HTML component. So for now let's create a HTML form and then we'll have to send the request and then we'll discuss how to send that request with the HTML. So for that let me open my Visual Studio Code and for an instance let me create a new HTML file so our HTML file will act like a client. So that particular HTML file will send a request to our server. We'll create a Node.js file for the server technology. So let me create a file. So this is my HTML file which will act like my client. So in that let's start the HTML code. We don't need the head tag, just the body tag is required. And now let's create a form. So this is a form. Now in a form, if I show you any kind of form, let's open a website, Ignu. Now let's suppose this is a form. So this is a form over here. So in form, basically we have three components. First is label. The second is input field in which we can input some kind of data. Then we have a button on which we have an event. So this can be easily done with the help of form. We can create, let me just put a label for that. Let's add, enter your name. Then we'll say enter your age. Then let's say enter your mail ID. Now these are the labels which can be directly showcased on the form. After that we'll have to write down inputs. So we'll write down this input. So we have three inputs for this. Also the type of input we'll say is type text, again type text, again type equals to text. So these are our three inputs. Now also let's add another input of type submit. So this input will act like a button. Type submit. Now let's check the output. Okay, so this is the output of that particular form. So in this I can enter my name. So I'll write Kuldeep. I can enter my age. So let's say my age is 40. I can enter my mail ID. So let's say my mail ID is kuldeep@gmail.com. gmail.com. And if I click on submit, so you can see the page refreshed. Now what we have to do, we have to pass names to this form. We'll pass name equals to name, and then you will see the change in the URL of that particular module. So name equals to age, and input name for this is name is just like of ID. We use that in the process of fetching data from the form. Right, now let's save this and let's check the output. Refresh this. Now name is, let's say, Kuldeep Sharma, age is 40, mail ID kuldeep@gmail.com. Now let's submit this data and just focus on this search bar. So if I click on submit, the data automatically you can see the data in the search bar. So using the form we can easily create a request. So by default the request is created for 127.0.0.5500. So our port is not 5500. So our default port is not 5500. Our default port, we'll define that in the server browser. So we'll define the port and other details in our server. So our port is 8050. So we'll write down in form, we'll write down action equals to, now we need that URL. So let's go to that and copy this part. Now this is our action. Also as the port we are using in the server is 8050. So we'll write down 8050 over here. Let's save this. And now let's check the output. So we enter our age, let's say age is 25, mail ID again kuldeep@gmail.com. And if I click on submit, so it will give me the site can't be reached. Why? because 127.0.0 refused to connect. Why? Let me say, for that I have to run my node server. So I'll write down node second node.js, enter, and now let's try to send the request once again. So if I resend this, so you can get the data, and data is name Kuldeep, age 25, mail kuldeep@gmail.com. So this is how we can fetch the data inside the node server. Also let's remove this extra details from here. Also let's remove this. Now let's save this and check the output of the form. Okay, we need to restart the server. So let's close this and start the server. Now if I refresh this and send some data, let's say if I send Mukul, age 23, email ID mukul123@gmail.com, and submit this data. Now you are getting, welcome Mukul, your age is 23 from the request. So now in this client server architecture, we are passing some kind of data from client to the server, and also in reverse, vice versa, from server to the client. So this data transfer is following a protocol that is known as HTTP protocol, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which consists of several rules that how a data can be transferred from one endpoint to the another endpoint, and in our case that endpoints are client and server. So this is not the only way to send our data. We have several HTTP methods also. For example, by default method of a HTML form is get method. So if I put method equals to get, so this is a by default method of HTTP. So if I send the data using the HTTP get method, the data will showcase, so the data will show up in the URL like this. But what if we are sending some kind of password or some kind of confidential detail? So we don't want to send data inside the URL like this, because that is quite unsecure for the user. So if I send the data like this and it showed up on the URL, so it will be quite unsecure for the user. For that we have a different method. We have a post method. So if I change the method to post, so post method will do, it will send the data with the help of body, not the URL, only the body of that particular request. So a request can have a URL, a request can have a body, a request can have a head, a request can have a form along with that. So a request can contain not only the URL but multiple details as well. So with the help of post, we can send the data inside the URL. So let's save this, and now let me resend the data. Now the data will be sent to the client. Now the data is sent to the server, but not in the URL but in the body. So we'll write down Kuldeep Sharma. Now you can see the data is not in the body, but we are still calling the server. And this undefined is because we are trying to fetch the data from the URL, but there is no data inside the URL, the data inside the body. And how to fetch that particular post request and how to fetch data from the form from the body, we'll discuss that in the express module, which is the next module after node. For now, just you have to know that if we send the request with the help of a get, the data will be shown in the URL, and if we use the post method, the data will be sent with the help of the body or the form of the request. So that's all about HTML forms and how to send and how to fetch data with the help of a form in Node.js. In the next video, we'll discuss about Node file system and how to store this data inside text file or CSV files with the help of Node and JavaScript. So thank you for watching this video.